We're all off the fresh announcement of the new Rode gear about to drop. And there's a bunch of murmurs happening, and a lot of positivity as well as some negativity. And a lot of questions of, well, how did we get here? Like this tweet from last week from Kettner Creative, saying, I'm still confused about how Rode built the Rodecaster Pro before Allen and Heath, Digico, Midas, Yamaha, SSL, Focusrite, PreSonus, or Mackie. I don't think I'll ever get over this. Well, interesting story, but they weren't the first to market with a podcasting interface. More on that in a bit. So how did we get here, where Rode is seemingly dominating the audio scene and outpacing every other company in podcast audio? Well, as always, let's start at the beginning. The official story of Rode kicks off in the 90s, though the company goes back a bit further than that. They started off as Friedman Electronics back in the 60s, focusing on design, manufacture, and installation of loudspeakers, amplifiers, and mics. The 80s were not kind to the company, and as they moved into the 90s, they were looking for a way to turn things around. And they found that with the NT1. And with that, the Rode brand was established. The success of that initial mic led to a whole lineup of mics through the 90s, including the NT2, the NT3, the NT4, and the NT5, clearly with points off for creativity and naming. But they also never stopped reimagining the NT1 with refreshes on the build coming often. But along with that burgeoning success came the most critical point in Rode's future success: the decision to bring manufacturing in-house. Now, what's important here is you have to remember this is a family business. While everyone else was focusing on building the best clone they could find, package it up, and sell it off, Rode planted their ideals in manufacturing their own product. And this is an important thing to remember as we start to break down their success later on. All research, design, and most manufacturing was being done in-house, which made Rode a boutique company at first. But as the years passed and they released more and more products that were held in high regard by the audio community, they expanded their empire even more. They now handle it all in-house with metal fabrication, injection molding, circuit board printing, and most importantly, capsule production. And this is where the pieces of the puzzle start to fall into place. Friedman was also busy behind the scenes buying up companies to fill out their products. In 2006, they bought Event Electronics, which gave them a firm foothold in North America. Then in 2016, they bought Soundfield. But the big one, or at least for this channel, was in 2015 when they bought Afex Systems. At the time, it wasn't anything noteworthy, but they would eventually find a use for that big bottom and oral exciter. Okay, I get it. Boom is an interesting word to describe podcasting, as it has been more of a swell than anything, considering the concept has been around for 20 years. A cute little fact here about the name podcasting. It was coined by journalist Ben Hammersley when writing for The Guardian in February 2004. And it caught on quick. By September of that year, Google was already tracking it, and it was quickly becoming popular. And while the idea of podcasts grew rather quickly, the concept of being a podcaster was out of reach for many. Not only was a home studio wildly expensive back in the day, it was also not a user-friendly experience, as editing and production weren't ubiquitous knowledge at the time. So the learning curve was steep. But despite that, the number of podcasters grew month over month and year over year. And companies, they started to notice the trend. Funnily enough, while a lot of people think the Rodecaster Pro was the first to market a podcast interface, it actually wasn't. The Tascam US 42B Mini Studio was actually the first. If you're curious to see what that was all about, stay tuned and get subscribed. I have a review on it coming up. But companies were starting to take notice of the podcast boom and were trying to fill in the gaps, and a lot of people rushed products out. Some, like Tascam, just didn't promote, and well, it kind of fell by the wayside. But perhaps the biggest problem was it wasn't podcast enough, and it wasn't as simple as it could be. Remember, a lot of potential podcasters had zero knowledge going in, even back in 2017. If anyone was going to break through, it had to be dumb simple. Now, Rode, they were watching, and I can imagine the research and development teams were hard at work. They were actually quite early on the scene with podcasting equipment as well, releasing the Podcaster in 2007. In 2012, they moved another product called the Procaster, a broadcast dynamic mic. But the big moment for them came in 2019 with the release of the original Rodecaster Pro. And it was huge for a few reasons. Not only was it easy to use for literally everyone, but it also had features in it that were only available to broadcast professionals up to that point. Let's just say that purchase of Affix was coming in real handy, but they over-engineered the crap out of it as well. Touchscreen UI, all aluminum, oh wait, this is Australian, all aluminium body, and overall the perfect aesthetic that would set them apart from everyone else. And this was a key moment in the future success in how we got here. Now, while other companies scrambled to meet the technological advancement of the Rodecaster Pro, a unique opportunity popped up for Rode, and that was the worldwide shutdown for COVID. Any company looking to produce something anywhere close to the quality of the Rodecaster Pro was essentially blocked. Research and development wasn't going to happen over video conferencing. And to top it off, with everyone home and looking for distractions, podcasting got a massive boost, and the sales of the Rodecaster Pro did as well. And while other companies fought worldwide shortages, the Rodecaster Pro already had established supply lines. And though it was slow, they weren't bogged down as much by the semiconductor shortage. Rode had inadvertently released the perfect product at the perfect time, and everyone else was caught flat-footed and were incapable of challenging the supremacy of the Rodecaster Pro. Now, by the time companies were able to catch up, this is where the biggest misstep happened. Though I can imagine, with the way the world was in 2021, probably not their fault. Zoom answered first with the L8, a product/music board that kind of teetered on the line of being too confusing for many. Tascam jumped back into the space with the Mixcast 4, a fantastic answer to the Rodecaster Pro, but sadly it wasn't breaking any new ground and wouldn't stop the juggernaut. Zoom went back to the drawing board at the same time and released the LiveTrack P4 and LiveTrack P8, and it had some upside, but also a lot of downside to it as well. Even as a copy, it fell well short of the Rodecaster Pro. But the misstep here was bigger than this. You see, everyone focused on trying to get a piece of the pie, even though Rode had already eaten most of it. Not a single company tried to one-up Rode. No research went into fixing the issues that the Rodecaster Pro had, and it did have a couple. No development went into creating a product that outpaced it. They just wanted some of the new market without going through the paces of research and development that was needed. And all the while, Rode was secretly working on one-upping themselves with the Rodecaster Pro 2. And by the time that was announced, it was pretty much too late for everyone else. And this is how we got here. And much like everything else in the world, we wait for the competitors to catch up. And they might have tried, but even before they could, Rode is already creating the next lineup of gear that everyone's going to own, which is their crown to wear. So love them or hate them, Rode are at the top of the heap of audio gear, and it's not going to change anytime soon. So stay tuned. Those new reviews are coming.